Let's turn to Jon Alterman now, Director of the Middle East Program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. That is a bipartisan, nonprofit policy research organization. Sir, we're grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Shep.
Are we right to ask questions about this particular video and this attack? And I say that because the government and none of its pieces or parts has or have come forward with anything saying this is definitive. The defense secretary says we're still assessing, and yet the president has warned the Russians that the missiles are on the way.
Well, I would think the president knows some things he's not saying, and the Secretary of Defense knows some things that he's not saying. There certainly is the video evidence. There may be some overhead evidence that is satellite imagery that we have that would give us some sense. We may have intercepted communications either from the Syrian government or from victims, and you could verify that they're actually feeling those symptoms at the time. I could imagine there are a lot of possible streams of evidence that would reinforce it. I think what the UN is trying to do is saying, let's get in, let's get nonpartisan observers in, let's try to prove this as a way of moving the Syrian government. I think that what you're seeing on the U.S. government side, maybe we're not even going to wait for that. The president will act in the time, place, and manner of his choosing.
Over these 7 years, more than 500,000 people are dead. There's no real denying that. The question is, haven't there been chemical attacks repeatedly, according to these same organizations, by the dozens over this time period?
Well, there haven't been for a while, and the Syrians agreed to get rid of their chemical stockpiles, and the Russians certified they got rid of them, and it hasn't happened. So I think there's a desire on the U.S. side and the French side, other countries say we have to demonstrate this isn't acceptable. The broader question, which goes to your point about 500,000 Syrians having died in this conflict, is what is our strategy toward Syria? If we're going to strike Syria, there is no question in my mind that Bashar al-Assad can withstand a strike. But what are we trying to do with the strike? Are we just sending a message about chemical weapons, or do we have a sense of where we want Syria to go, what our interests are? It seems to me that you can do a military attack very easily, but the real question is, what's your desired effect? And I think having a desired effect requires not just the strike, but a strategy and a follow-up and a goal. And I'm not sure that all those pieces have been lined up yet.
Well, there are 6 or 7 wars going on in Syria at one time at this moment, if you ferret it all out and count them. And if we've had a cohesive and comprehensive strategy in Syria from the very beginning of this, crossing over 2 administrations, nobody's ever been able to give us exactly what it is. We are said to be supporting the Syrian rebels who have been nameless and faceless, and we've not said that we want regime change or that we want to stop the Air Force or we want to make it impossible to launch chemical strikes. We haven't said anything.
In point of fact, what we've said is we are there to fight ISIS. And what the president said is when ISIS is gone, we're going to be gone. And all of the things that you're talking about with the Syrian government have not been the focus of American strategy. And quite frankly, it's not clear what the legal basis of a big American push toward regime change or toward affecting with the power in Syria. All those things, Congress hasn't authorized it. I think the government, neither the Obama administration nor the Trump administration has really articulated a strategy. I don't think they've come up with an internal strategy. And to my mind, this has been one of our weaknesses in Syria, is we have been sure what we're not doing. We haven't been clear at all on what we're trying to do and what our desired end state is. And a horrible thing is to put your military at risk and to put soldiers at risk when you're not being clear what are they trying to accomplish. We can kill and destroy stuff like nobody else in the world, but it has to be toward a purpose, and that requires having a strategy and a set of goals, and I'm not sure we've ever been there in our actions in Syria.
Before we go, there's a John Kirby, who I'm sure you know, who was a Rear Admiral and then was the spokesperson for the State Department from 15 to 17, who was a guest on this program countless times over the years. Now happens to work at CNN, but he sent out a tweet this morning about the president's telegraphing in a way that he said he wouldn't. And John Kirby said this: There's a lot not to like about the commander-in-chief tweeting details of pending strikes on targets abroad. A lot. But what bothers me, said John Kirby, most is the cavalier and careless way he speaks about the use of force. It's not a video game, he writes. Lives are at stake here. Was the president, in your estimation, given historical norms, out of bounds here?
Again, I think there's no question that we can strike things, we can destroy things. The real question is, what is our purpose? How does it fit in? How does the strike fit into a broader set of actions that get you where you want to go? I understand there's a certain novelty in being able to launch the strike, but you have to be doing it for a purpose. It has to be part of a series of actions. And as I say, I don't think either the Obama administration or the Trump administration has been clear enough to itself, let alone to the American public, what the series of actions is and what the intended outcome is.
Jon Alterman is the director of the Middle East program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Sir, thanks so much. I appreciate it.